That 9/11 on that Tuesday was 8 to 4 in the city, and then the rest of the week was Long Island. So usually it was just all Long Island. So that was the only day I had been scheduled for 5 years to work in the city, and it was 9/11. That was the date. And then the call came over the scanner. In so many words, it just basically says a plane has hit the tower.
A plane just crashed into the World Trade Center, for your information.
And then Nicole came running around the corner, and I said, I guess you want us to go to this. And she's like, go, go, go. So at that point, when we jumped into the car and started heading down south. But the traffic had stopped, so I figured I had 30 seconds. So on the FDR, in the right-hand lane, I got out, put the tripod out, took my camera out, started shooting. It actually was in the wrong filter at the very beginning because I was so rushed. Changed the filter, shot for about a minute, just in, out, whatever. And then this officer came up from behind and let me know that what I was doing was not cool in so many words, and said you better get moving right now, because if that wasn't going on, you know, I'd be arresting you right here. So at that point, the officer was so adamant, sirens started coming from the background. And then Pauline said, let me drive. And I just threw the tripod in the back and just decided, just let me roll. Then out of the blue, at first I didn't even see the plane go in. I just saw the explosion. And then I think I told Pauline, I said, we're not going down. That's obviously it's not an accident now. I think the most remarkable thing about it is the sound. Because a lot of the video that you see from traffic cameras and stills is you see the explosion, you see the plane going in. But this had like a 2-second delay. You see the birds kind of flying around, and it was pretty horrific. And what happened actually after that is we park our car. I'm getting all these different angles. The fire is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The smoke is getting thicker and thicker. Fire trucks going by behind us. You can see the firemen looking up. You know, obviously don't know what they're about to do or fight. And then we interview these people, and they're so emotional about how this could happen. And one of the two said, you know, that it was a plane. And I said, I think it was a bomb. I didn't see the plane. So I got really, really nervous, because it was such a dramatic shot that sometimes your instinct is to just hit the button again. And I didn't. But after I had enough video and we had enough sound, I just told Pauline, I said, I have to rewind this. I have to see if this is what if the second plane did go in. So I'm rewinding. All of a sudden, I'm like watching it go backwards, you know, and then sure enough, I play it, and then you can see the second plane go in. So when we fed it in, they played that back so many times. They rewind it live, and just kept showing it and their reaction. But I think after a day of that video, that management said, we can't show this anymore. So that's what was wild about it. Like it's something that it's a moment in our lives that I'll never forget, but you can't see it because they don't want to show it to upset too many people. I mean, it was horrific, and you know, you're in the moment, you can't believe this stuff's happening, and you see the people starting to come toward us, because where we were, the police had guided everyone toward the FDR to get out. Like they just needed to get as many people out of there as possible. So they had just started coming out through the lower streets. Some of them covered in stuff, some of them not. All the smoke is literally, I don't know, 500 yards south of us on the FDR, and it's thick white smoke. You can't see through it. And then all of a sudden, one by one, people started coming out of that dust that were working down there. Some of them without shoes, some of them covered in blood, all of them covered in this soot. And then all of a sudden, it was just like it was like a zombie movie. Everyone didn't know what they had just witnessed, what they were going through, what was happening. That's the stuff that really left a mark on me, because it was personal. You could see what these people were dealing with. When you start talking to people and you get other people's takes, and then, you know, in one interview I was crying. The woman was so emotional, and she actually looks over at me as she's doing the interview, and I think she sees the tears coming out of my eyes. When I saw the second plane hit, I called my wife and I just said, you need to get out of the city. She was working in the city. And as she's walking toward the train station, she sees on the TVs, you know, in some of these stores, that the first tower's collapsed. So instead of going home, she comes here, and she wants to make sure that I'm okay, because she can't get through to me. So we're standing there. This is after I think both towers have collapsed at this point. And now the desk is calling me, and they're asking me if I'm okay. And I'm hitting the button, and it's not going through. It just goes beep. Keith, are you okay? Your wife's here, your wife's here, your wife's here, are you okay? And I'm fine, but I can't get through. So here, they're probably thinking, you know, he's under the rubble. Because no one knew that we had stopped there yet. This wasn't, we didn't have to text the desk to say, hey, we're in a spot. You know, they just assumed that that was our assignment. So they didn't know what we had yet. So I must have hit that button 24 times, and each time they're responding saying, are you okay? We need to know, your wife's here, and I couldn't get through. So I think for a while they probably thought that we were down there and you know, under the rubble. I remember going to firehouses that night. Everyone was very somber, and no one knew who survived and who passed on, and you know, everything got shut down that night. There was no taxi service, there was no restaurants, there was no people. Everyone was in. It was like something you're never gonna ever see again. So I think I got home at like 3 in the morning. There was a lot to do as far as telling the story itself. You know, that plane going in was just one angle of it. Then there was, you know, we had someone who was up there who was in the tower at that time, and you know, we didn't know how many people were going to die. We didn't know how many people got out. You know, we didn't know how many people survived. Who did you know? You know, I knew an officer who was down there. Is he okay? And you know, there was so many stories that you had to kind of angle. So it was, you'd cover one story, you'd come back, you'd take a little bit of a break. They would ask you, are you okay? And you know, yes. You know, where do you need me to go next? You know, I go to the hospital. And so there was a lot to do, but it was overwhelming, and yet, you know, it's part of our job. I'll tell you this, every time I drive down the FDR, I know exactly the spot. And the terrain has changed a little bit. There's more buildings now kind of blocking the view. But I just remember like finally getting the chance to see where this black smoke was, you know, where it was coming from, and then seeing it, that was a shock. You know, because you could see the whole entire outline of the plane there. It was just chance that, you know, we could have, if we hit a red light, you know, we might have missed it. If we didn't stop on the FDR, we definitely would have missed it. And then that meant we would have been underneath it as the towers started going down. So I think it would have been a different story for me. I mean, obviously, in the end, it changed our world. So I wasn't thinking about that at that time. I was just thinking to do my job. I mean, I was doing my job.